This presentation is about news behavior in the post-truth era. I have two co-authors. We all come from Hacettepe University, Department of Information Management. I am Serap Kurbanoğlu, and my co-authors are Yurdagül, Ünal, and İpek, Şencan. It is now said that we live in a post-truth era. Of course, there are a lot of discussions about this concept and phenomena, but I'm not going to go into the details here within this presentation. One of the most salient characteristics of the post-truth era is the proliferation of ambiguous information. Social media facilitates its speedy dissemination, and manipulation through mis or disinformation becomes widespread. And individuals in the post-truth era increasingly believe information that appeals to their emotions and beliefs rather than factual and objective information. While the media and internet provide vast quantities of information, they place actually the responsibility on the individual's shoulders to sort out true from false. Individuals, on the other hand, may have limited time, cognitive resources, or motivation to understand complex topics. And as a result, misconceptions are commonplace. Moreover, once inaccurate beliefs are formed, they are very difficult to eradicate. The ramifications can be serious. As we all know, a functioning democracy relies on well-informed citizens. However, if a majority believes in something that is factually incorrect, the mis or disinformation may form the basis for political and societal decisions that run counter to a society's best interest. And it is similar for the individuals. If an individual is misinformed, he or she may likewise make decisions that are not in her or his best interest. So misdisinformation is actually seen as a serious threat, not only to democracies, but also to the well-being of societies and individuals. In order to prevent people from being fooled by falsehoods, what is needed the most is training to develop their critical thinking and news literacy skills. But when we need to develop training programs on the subjects, we need some extra information. Preparation of an adequate news literacy training program requires an understanding of news consumption behavior of the target group and also the skill gaps to be able to address within the training program. This study aims to investigate news consumption and sharing behavior of university students in Turkey. These are our research questions. What are the news behavior patterns among university students, and whether it is consistent with the global patterns or not? And if there are differences, what are these differences? What are students' opinions about news media in general and also news media in Turkey? And what are the skills gap regarding news literacy? A quantitative method is used in this study. Data was collected through a questionnaire. Quota sampling was used based on the numbers of private and public universities because we actually wanted to take into consideration the profile differences between these private and public universities. And the survey was conducted in the year 2020. Study population is actually constructed by 655 undergraduate students. They come from 92 different universities out of 190 altogether. They come from all sorts of departments and disciplines, and 85% of them from the state universities. Of course, the number of state universities in Turkey is much higher than the private ones. and 61% of the participants are female students. And I'd like to talk a little bit about our findings. When we ask our participants whether they actually got any training in one of these subjects, about a quarter of them actually say they had some training either in news literacy, media literacy, or information literacy. But of course, certainly here we don't know what these concepts actually mean to them. When we say information literacy or news literacy, what they understand and whether it's in line with what actually we consider the information literacy and news literacy. A further study, a kind of qualitative study is needed to understand it actually. Vast majority of the students, it is actually 93%, they say that they follow news. Only 7% avoid news, and there are different reasons for that. They actually find news quite negative or upsetting, some of them. Some of them are not interested at all. Some don't actually rely on the accuracy of the news, and some just say that they don't have time for it. And frequency of following news, 60% of the students, participants, say that they follow news several times a day. And about 30% follow the news once a day, and 11% actually do it less frequently. When we put the first two figures together, actually it makes 90%, and 90% of students at least follow the news at least once in a day, and I think it is quite satisfying. We actually expected some increase in the news following frequency during the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, and 75% of the participants actually say that the frequency increased, the frequency of following news increased. 9%, for 9%, it is decreased. Probably they find it more confusing because news are really quite confusing because there are so many contradictory information. And 16% say there was no change. When we look at the subject of the news they follow, students follow or interested, we see that politics is on the first row. Then it is followed by health and medicine and education, and it is not surprising at all. Entertainment and celebrities is the least interesting subject for the students. When we look at the most preferred news sources, about 30%, this is the actually first in the row, actually prefer using Twitter to get news. And this is followed by online news sites and online newspapers and TV. And the rest of the news channels or sources like print newspapers, radio, closed messaging apps, social circle, or other social media platforms like Facebook, they are used less or preferred less. When you look at the trust in news media, of course, it changes from channel to channel or platform to platform, the trust level changes. However, it is 5 to 15% never suspect the accuracy of news. On the other hand, 50 to 82% suspect the accuracy, either sometimes or often or always. The most interesting thing here, the most interesting finding here is that social media is the least trusted source. However, I just mentioned that Twitter is the most preferred source for news. So this is quite, interesting. They actually prefer Twitter the most, but they trust social media the least. But it is the same with the global findings. I should say that when we look at the Reuters's 2021 findings from their global survey, they had the same results. When it comes to the verifying news, 83% verify news either sometimes or often or always. 2% never verify, so probably these are the ones they never suspect the accuracy of news, and 40% actually do that rarely. There are different verification methods they use, but the most oftenly used method is checking other platforms for the same news. And the second one is, it is actually done by 60%, checking who published it and on which platform it is actually published. Checking to referring to fact-checking platforms is not very common. It is only 16%, but of course there could be different reasons behind that. One could be they might not be aware of these platforms, or of course fact-checking platforms are not able to check every single news, so we don't know. But as I said earlier on, a further research, a qualitative one, actually is required here to clarify certain issues. More about verification, 43% said that they don't know how to verify a news image. And nowadays, you know, there are a lot of images which are used to mislead people. So it is an important issue. And Google Images is the most widely used tool when it comes to image verification. And 69%, it is almost 70%, do not follow any fact-checking platforms. When it comes to sharing news, 51%, it is just a bit more than half, share news on social media. And there are different motivations and reasons behind this, why they are sharing news on social media. When it comes to sharing breaking news, I think we see here that people are a bit more careful. 54% do not share breaking news on social media, because with the breaking news, you know, it's very easy to get disinformation and cause some misinformation, just spreading it around. 35% check how current the information is, 23% check the accuracy, and 23 say that they actually read the comments and they make decisions and so on. About the opinions, their opinions about news media, actually this information was collected based on Likert scale, five Likert scale. When we put agree and strongly agree together, we see that 72% actually believes that media has the power to shape public opinion, and 66% says or believes that news is necessary for democracy. 63% have some concerns about fake news. Only 57% are aware of the algorithms and aware that platforms personalize the news, and there are some rankings and, you know, different algorithms behind the news and information they access. This is interesting and also important. There is one more actually finding here. Only 41% have some concerns about algorithms and personalization. So this is all about the filter bubbles and echo chambers, and it is an important issue. Their opinions about Turkish news media. When we put disagree and strongly disagree together, 73%, this is actually 3/4, more or less, think that news media in Turkey are impartial. This is also an important finding. When we put agree and strongly agree together, they think that news media in Turkey had to understand, 44% believes that news media had to understand the news of the day and keep them up to date. It is 42%. And 33% actually say that news media in Turkey focus on negative events and focus more on entertainment. This is 36%. When we come to the conclusions, most of the findings seem to be in line with the global news consumption trends of young people. When we look at the global findings of the global survey, mainly Reuters survey I'm talking about, young people, they prefer social media to get their news and the online platforms, especially online newspapers. But these are the, especially social media is the least trusted source of news. Turkish university students seem to approach the news critically most of the time. Maybe this is because they live in an authoritarian country. It is an authoritarian regime, and this is what happens in this kind of societies. And there is a skill gap. There are skill gaps on certain fields, such as verification methods and techniques, and they need some training on this. And there is a need for structured and well-planned formal news literacy training. There are some training programs, but mainly informal programs in Turkey. So maybe more formal structure will be more useful. Our recommendations, news literacy actually can be regarded as a part of everyday information literacy, which goes beyond academic subjects, sources, and methods. And it should be considered as an essential part of information literacy instruction, at least for general public. And public libraries can actually play a leading role here. And collaboration with other stakeholders like fact-checking platforms or faculty from LIS departments or communication faculties should also be taken into account. News literacy can help, or news can help with teaching critical thinking skills for all target groups, and this can be used by academic libraries also. News could be a subject of interest for majority, and it might help attracting more audience, because this is a problem instruction librarians sometimes have. They have difficulties to attract people to the voluntary-based sessions they organize. Information literacy instruction programs can be revised and updated accordingly, and instruction librarians might need additional knowledge and skills to teach news literacy. So this is something else, or the other side of the coin. And in service training programs and LIS curricula should be revised accordingly. These are the references we have used to prepare this presentation, and thank you very much for listening. And if you have questions, I will actually try to answer. I'll do my best to do it. Thank you very much.